light.
Have you seen The Rehearsal? Watch that show?
I saw part of the episode where he is like a baby dressed
Yeah,
up as Sully. It's that's so insane.
it's cool. I really that show's really popular like amongst like autistic people because there's like yeah, because there's like lots of social scripting and it can be I think it's just because you get to practice before and like run the scenario like any outcome for any like social interaction before it actually like occurs. So then you feel like prepared and um at ease. I guess that's like kind of what that does in a sense. But I thought we started watching that. And I think it's kind of like a really intriguing. I guess we actually I think we blew through both seasons.
So you finished the Sully the aviation season.
It's intense. There's like they're only like 30 minutes and but they feel like I think they're kind of uncomfortable to watch. So
Yeah.
um but I don't know, I'm fascinated by I love that they make like a full like replica of like space like down to every single detail. For example, like the first person they went in and scanned his whole house and built like a whole set of like every single book that was like in his house and like I don't know, it's just kind of nuts. Or like they did like a bar scene and they do it so that every single chair is exactly the same.
The bar is in there's a that bar's in Williamsburg apparently.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I've never been there. I think it's called like Crocodile Lounge or
Yeah,
something.
my roommate was telling me that he was bartending all weekend last weekend.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
It's so
funny.
crazy, so crazy. There's a level of like meta. Do you ever watch Rick and Morty, or have you seen it?
No, I my students told me that I should watch that show. They thought I would like it.
Like the first couple seasons are like genius, brilliant. They have this thing called interdimensional cable where they watch like alien infomercials, and they show one, and this guy is like this alien is doing like an infomercial, and then he's like done with it. He's advertising whatever product, and then they keep filming while he like leaves the set and goes home and like like sees his family and has dinner and all this stuff. But so you were saying that autistic people like the show because they would like an opportunity to like go through something before they do it.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was teasing with my partner. I was like, too bad there's, even though it seems silly, but I was like, Dan's such a nice guy, so it doesn't really matter. But I was like, I wish there was like a rehearsal for this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that you said we can record if we need to edit
Oh,
anything out.
oh,
Um,
totally. No pressure at all. It's super like it's super and the whole idea is not to like I don't want you to be like, "Oh, dang, I wish like I wish I didn't say that." But also I have that too. Like I kind of like when I do these there's like a lot of stuff I wish I would have said as well
oh,
or
cool.
questions I would have asked. I just had a monk on. I just released it today, this Benedictine monk, and I think you'd enjoy this episode. He's like just such a cool dude. Just a rad guy. Like he's a musician. I went and heard him. I was in Chicago. Like my brother's really into medieval music and Gregorian chants and classical music. So I was like, where could we hear something like that? And this monastery popped up. It's called Monastery of the Holy Cross. Very small. I think it's the only urban monastery of Benedictine monks in the country. But you're just like transported. It's like something with like the system of chanting that like is meant to just utterly transport you to this. Plus, they're like going real heavy on the frankincense and
Cool.
just being in this space, it like reverberates off the walls, and you're sort of permeated with this kind of this sound. But he's really interesting. And there's like a bunch of questions I wish I would have asked him. It's really like, what's the texture? What's the quality of life like as a monk like that? They seem quite happy. What are they doing? What's going on there?
Yeah, you have a lot of, I guess, like, seems like I like that you're kind of combining, seems like monks and artists. Do you like, I mean, I guess, I mean, I draw parallels between the two. I mean, I'm guessing that you are as well, like by
Oh yeah.
having that in the same space.
Yeah.
podcast. Do you go listen to chanting in New York?
I haven't here. I wonder if there's some places there. I heard there's one church in like the Lower East Side that does it, or somewhere in like Lower Manhattan that does. Apparently they're pretty. They let people like participate, and
Oh,
you can like
cool.
learn like you can like sort of like learn like they kind of teach you how to do it.
Do you read any Mircea Eliade?
No.
He's my so comparative religious studies is one of my special interests, and I just broke down and bought his 16-volume encyclopedia, and I have pretty much every single one of his books. I just bought, I guess, like five more uh, that are a little bit more obscure recently, and they're hard to I guess come across. Like in a library, like a typical library. They don't have them on audiobook or anything like that. But I was thinking of him because he's into. I guess he's written pretty extensively on spirituality. I guess like some of his major areas are probably like alchemy, shamanism, and um, I guess like Eastern philosophical and mystical, like kind of and that's super broad, but like yeah, like he's written pretty extensively comparatively on those areas. Um, and but he wasn't really, and when he covered, he had this kind of bias within like shamanism and kind of accessing like an alternate, like a state of ecstasy. He didn't like any type of like plant hallucinogen. Um, but he would have really liked the idea of accessing kind of, as you were talking about, like the senses with incense or chanting. That would have been like to him a pro way of kind of getting to that sort of that kind of space that feels, um, I guess you could say transcendent or mystical, or I don't even know. It's like so you put like a word to it, it sounds kind of corny, but it's like you. I think if you feel it or you tap into that, it's pretty special and interesting. Some people they go their whole life and they never tap into that, which I think is really interesting.
I agree. I agree. And I think we're lucky as artists that we sort of have an maybe an inclination towards that.
I think so, and I mean it can be called different things. I mean, people talk about, I guess, like flow state, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Where,
totally. Yeah.
yeah,
Th-
or like I think there's a lot of mystery in being an artist, and a lot of parallels in relationship to. I mean, I almost feel like if I weren't an artist, I'd be like a religious zealot or something,
Same.
probably. Or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
God.
For sure. Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. In a different maybe if you were born in a different time, right? That would be maybe one of the only paths you could take, like being an artist in the way that we know it is pretty new, I think.
yeah, I think so too. Do you believe in reincarnation?
I strongly lean towards that, because just I mean like there are things that I don't want to get too into like the dogma of it, but there are things in Buddhism which just make sense in terms of like karma. I'm not
Hmm.
sure um to what level, like I don't know how literal it is, but it seems like there's like a whole like there's so much stuff that are just beyond our scope of understanding, and it could include past lives. I mean, it seems like the Buddha, for example, talked about it pretty almost nonchalantly, like, yeah, of course there are past lives. Yeah, it's like, like, and if the Buddha says it, it must be true, right?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I guess like, do you identify as being Buddhist? Would you say that that's something,
Um,
or
well, that's interesting you mentioned that. I had a conversation with a former monk who had just recently disrobed, and he was talking about that. We were talking about sort of like I guess convention. Buddhism is still like the Buddha, for example, wasn't a Buddhist. Christ wasn't a Christian.
hmm.
These are, I think they're structures, they're frameworks for seeing things maybe more clearly in some senses. What about yourself? I noticed on your Instagram you had a good amount of posts that were like Buddhist in nature or spiritual in nature,
Oh
which I really
yeah,
enjoyed.
I like it. I feel like it was funny. I just reconnected with one of my teachers recently, uh, Peter Halley. 'Cause I started doing some temper paintings. I just wanted to talk to him, and I really like him a lot. He was like really like a really sweet. I think he's like probably one of the main reasons why I got into grad school. Uh,
So he taught at Yale, right?
yeah, he was running the
Yeah.
department there, and I think he was really. I thought he did a really good job actually trying to expand it because I think before he was there, it's like you basically had to be from like the tri-state area to like in order to get in. And I feel like he actively tried to, I mean, I think like diversify the program and also make it more accessible to people from like the South. Like I don't know if I would have gotten in
So
otherwise. I think he had a soft spot because he went to school in New Orleans.
where
Um,
did you go in undergrad?
I did my first year at RISD and then I left, which doesn't really make sense, but I felt like I needed to be in Texas for my work to develop. And my mom's from there, and she raised us. Even though I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but we spent a lot of time in Texas because her whole family's from there, and she told us that we were Texan. And I spent probably I guess like most of my early 20s trying to figure out like what that meant like for me or like what she meant by that and also kind of understanding her culture uh more as a way of sort of like understanding I guess like myself and having more compassion for her and I had like kind of I guess like I started out with like I had sort of I guess like a self-directed like studio practice by the time I was like 15. So school was kind of hard for me because I didn't really, I'm sometimes like a little bit resistant, just arrogant, I guess, in part. Unfortunately, I guess when I was younger, but like, I'd have I think it was more of also like an autism thing of like not, if you don't understand like the structure of something, it can be like kind of, tricky to sometimes accept it. You could be like, well, why are we doing this?
So you
Like,
were good with assignments.
I was not good. So what I would end up doing is like kind of the assignment and then do like three other paintings or something, like and bring that in and then like want like feedback on like my work and then like kind of do it, but so it wasn't being like disrespectful to the teacher or um and I was really like participatory, but if I felt like something was not like I didn't feel like I could like maybe if it didn't feel like it if I couldn't make sense of it uh contributing to the practice it felt kind of complicated. But I was talking to him, but going back to the you're asking like what I believe in. He was funny. He was like looking at some of my poems and he's like, "What do you believe?" And I was like, I don't know. I was like, all of it and none of it. And he's like, a true mystic. And I was like, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I just like I think there's like lots of different ways. And I like I mean I've been I guess really into I've been trying to read a lot about Buddhism and started looking into like tantra. Do you have any experience with that?
I've no idea. What is it?
Um, well, I guess it's like a lot of it deals with I mean there's expressions of it within like Buddhism and Hinduism. Um, but and I guess you could almost expand it to anything that deals with like opposites.
I was gonna say it's like a dualist thing. Not
Yeah,
this right? Like you'll have like a does it require two people necessarily?
um, it it can. It doesn't have to. I mean, I think a lot of times people they think of it in relationship to sex, which is cool
Sexual. Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
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 What I like about it is that it's not really like ascetic, um, which I think a lot of like traditions are, which is great. I mean, there's no problem with that. I think there's lots of ways, but it kind of allows like I guess like forces like desire, that can be like used and alchemized to get to a certain place. Uh, even I mean I guess like ways that tantra can show up in Buddhism. It's one thing I've been looking at a lot of like I've been painting like images of tantric art and a lot of it has influenced like what I've crocheted also or like it's kind of informs that work these kind of And I think of it too as like something that uh feels kind of queer as well, since it has like or like a way of thinking about. I don't. I mean, that's like people would say that's kind of scandalous, maybe to a certain extent, but I like thinking about it in relationship as like exploring sort of like an androgen or like non-binary or trans kind of idea of existing. Um, but like I guess in Buddhism, I was looking at like there's this. I went to Tibet in the fall and I traveled around a little bit through like Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, and India, and I went to the Potala Palace, and there's this uh, little temple that's behind that's on an island, and they have this uh, this mural, the Lukang Temple murals. And Thomas Laird, who's a photographer, he's photographed it quite a bit. They used to have a reproduction of it at the Rubin
Yeah, it was a
Museum.
great museum. I'm so
Yeah,
sad it's gone.
me too. I'm so
Oh,
devastated. I've been
same.
trying to write them because I wanted to look. I have like the book. I have a book on that mural, but like I've been painting it a lot, and I wanted to get some more images from it, but it's been hard to access and emailing back and forth.
So it was at the Rubin, this mural?
It's like it's Thomas Laird's like he did like a reproduction with it. Like he photographed it, and I've just been painting different sections of it, but it is a example. It used to be secret, like they didn't like the Dalai Lama finally like allowed it to be open to like the public because it shows tantric like Buddhist tantric approaches to achieving like enlightenment. So it seems like almost like
Interesting.
it could be like dangerous to release that to the public because I guess that stuff like I don't know. I mean, I can see that. I mean, actually, like I think like one of the things that it shows is like I think it's called tumo. It's just like a type of yoga where you
Breathing, right?
what's that?
It's like a kind of breathing.
Yeah, it has some breathing in it. You're trying to cultivate inner heat and using that inner heat as like a transformative kind of force. And but it a lot of it involves these like kind of free fall yoga moves where you basically like could completely split open your tailbone if you do them wrong.
Yeah, I remember I watched it. I watched, that's funny you mentioned that. I remember watching like on YouTube or something, a monk do that. And he was showing you, he was saying that like he's really like not supposed to be showing you this, but he was showing the moves because it's like kind of a secret thing. These special like there's like a real intense like breathing thing going on. They're sort of jumping up and down a little bit, just like sitting there. Wait, so how long were you in Tibet? And when you went just basically on a tour to see these sort of landmarks and so forth?
Yeah, yeah. It's I went like the whole time I was traveling was about 7 weeks, but like kind of a couple weeks in each place. And yeah, it was great. I really liked. I mean, it's incredible. You have to. It's kind of tricky getting there because you. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't. I don't know. Like, I don't know who's going to be listening to this. Like, you have to lie to get your visa, because you can't say you're going to Tibet. You have to say that you're traveling through like mainland China, and
So
you,
technically, it's through China that
yeah,
you go. Yeah. Wow.
yeah, because they've kind of like it's different. It's different. They it's I think it's one thing that kind of bummed me out. It sort of felt like like I mean all the um temples and monasteries were really cool, but it does feel like it's kind of been built out for almost like Chinese tourists and
Yeah.
around and
Yeah.
like they have this thing that's kind of odd, like where it's like I kept on seeing this and I didn't know what it was at first, and then I realized it's like it's like really popular uh amongst Chinese to like dress up like Tibetans, and it sort of felt like the equivalency of I guess like white people maybe like dressing up like Native Americans or something like kind of
But
cool,
they're dressed
cool.
up like Tibetans. Are they trying to masquerade as Tibetans, or are they just doing it like
It's like cosplay, I guess,
weird? That's so
sort of.
weird. That's so
Yeah,
bizarre.
it was odd and like I mean I don't know. I know it's like part of the culture too. They'll do like that like kind of imperial style, but that feels different to me like than this. But it was interesting to like kind of I got like really into Tibetan Buddhism and um over the past few years because I went through some crazy health stuff and started like I guess researching more of that. And I wanted to go to places. I also like it's like the first art show that I saw in New York that had a huge influence on my work was at the Met, and they had this. Did you see it? As like in 2011, it was all these like, I forgot what it was called. I think it's like it basically featured all these like sacrificial Tibetan rugs of
No,
like they're like the flayed. You know what I'm talking about? They're like flayed men, and
no.
there's like flayed elephants. And that
Are
those
they embroidered or how are they made?
they're like woven rugs,
Woven, yeah.
and they have kind of like it almost looks like a giant sort of like wound like in the middle,
Whoa. So
and
was
they're
this
like
your wow.
spread
Wow,
open.
I gotta see these. Yeah. So
Yeah,
was this sort of your gateway into Tibetan art or into Tibetan Buddhism, I should say, or Buddhism in general?
I mean, I feel like that planted a seed. It definitely influences my work a lot, or influenced my work a lot. And it's interesting. Did you see the mandala show that they
I
had?
did. Beautiful.
Like, I thought it
Yeah.
was interesting. I was going
Yeah.
back looking at that. I went to it 3 times, and it was funny. I was like talking about it with a friend. They were like, "I can see a lot of your forms in this," and I was like, "I know,
Yeah.
we're great." And I wasn't really conscious of. I usually like sublimate stuff, and then I figure out. I never like look at something being like, "I'm gonna absorb this and like make it like put it in thing." But it usually kind of seeps in, and then it's kind of interesting to see it after the fact. And then I try when I realize that has happened. I try to learn everything I can about that. And I'd ended up leaving. I taught for 13 years, and I started teaching right after graduate school, and I had been teaching like full time 5 years, and I thought that I mean that was like a pretty profound, like one of the most profound like experiences I've had kind of with my life, and um, I had decided to leave teaching, and I thought that it would be nice to kind of almost like it's like return to center or something, and
Mm.
I thought that going on that trip would be good as a transition into getting back into studio. And I felt like it would also just be like it just felt responsible since it seemed like a lot of that uh, art had influenced my work to go and spend some time in the place, like just to kind of understand more of like the cultural context. And I mean, I also just really I love like going to monasteries and temples. I think it's like amazing. I like the energy of them. Uh, and I don't know, I was kind of just curious to see what those places feel like. And I mean, it's incredible. It's like I kind of felt, I mean, it kind of blew my mind actually. I mean, even like, especially like Nepal was like awesome. I mean, I kind of want to go back and see if I can do like maybe a Fulbright possibly at some point. Um, have you ever done
S-
a Fulbright or anything like
No, no, I
that?
haven't. But that's it's like a travel scholarship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can pair up with university. There's a Buddhist university in Nepal that's English speaking. I think it's called like Rangjung Yeshe, and like that might be kind of interesting. And I was kind of curious, possibly, and it might be fun to take some classes in
Oh
Sanskrit.
yeah. Oh yeah. So
And
that'd be awesome. Yeah, it'd be so cool. So you were you meditating there? What were you doing? Traveling around? Like you when you were in the monastery in the temples, would you did you do any like meditation retreats or anything?
I didn't do retreats. I've actually never done a meditation retreat, but I do meditate. I do transcendental meditation twice a day. You have a meditation practice
I
too,
I
right?
do. I do. Yeah.
What do
Right.
you do?
Well, I've done a number of Vipassana retreats in the Goenka tradition.
Hmm.
Do you know of that, the 10-day retreats?
Yeah, I actually just signed up, tried to sign up for one. I'm on a wait list. I've
Oh, it's
never done it
great.
before.
Oh,
I thought it
oh,
would
you're
be fun to
oh, it's
meditate with
great. It's
others.
awesome. Oh, you're gonna love it. Yeah. Oh, oh, I'm so excited you're doing that. It's completely at the deepest level, it's transformative. And I'm sure it seems like you're in a place where you can really get a lot out of it. But so that they really encourage you, if you, when you get into that tradition, to just practice Vipassana, which is observing sensations in the body,
Right?
systematically, like from the top down. But you start with the first 3 days are Anapana, which is just observing through the breath. And then then they teach you Vipassana, which is just observing sensations throughout the body. Like at every moment there are sensations, and you're learning to observe those without craving or aversion. So you might have unpleasant sensations, like your back hurts, and you can just sort of like focus on that point and observe it, move on. And the idea is that you want to look at everything in life with the same sort of with that lens of dispassion, but not in a way that you're not, it can be confusing because you think, oh, I don't want to like lose the things that I care. I really want I want to stay passionate about art and things that I like, and you still do, but you're less likely to be dissatisfied if things don't go your way, and if things are really great, you attach to it less. That's the idea. It makes you happier for sure. But in general, in daily life, I don't. It's hard to practice that because when you're there, when you do a 10-day, you're really in the zone. Like it's a unique bubble where you can really focus, and your perceptions become very clear, and your sensations become so laser focused. But in regular life, it's not like that. You have to, you're thinking all this stuff, and then you're by the end of the hour, if you're trying to meditate for half an hour, whatever it is, like you realize that maybe you focused on like one breath the whole time or whatever. But so in general, I just do like maybe focusing on the breath or maybe some sensations, but I'm not as strict, I think, in life. But so when you were
I'm just
sorry,
curious, how long have you been doing it for?
the first retreat I did was back in 2017,
That's cool. I mean,
and
it's
I
amazing. I try to get my students into. I mean, I would enter. I also made it very clear as like if you don't want to meditate, you don't have to. But I used to because I was always junior faculty,
where were you
and
teaching?
I was at SUNY Purchase, and so a lot of times too, I would. It is also my preference. I mean, I like teaching early, but none of the like no one who's like tenured ever wanted to teach like an 8 a.m. class, you know. So I'm usually really I wake up at like pretty I'm like an early riser and I feel very focused, and also it's like by the time the afternoon rolls around, part of it's like sensory sensitivity. That I feel like I've kind of been standing on like a tarmac, and now even it's like I'm in full swing menopause, from having to have like a hysterectomy so it's early, and my hormones are kind of uh evening out, and I get really tired. I notice like dips in the afternoon, I guess with like how my body's like processing estradiol.
So
Um,
so when we spoke, you said you might have to do some sundowning.
oh yeah, I should maybe I should say that. I like because that's like a dementia thing, but I feel like it's like
What is that?
I feel like my brain just doesn't work. Like I feel like in the afternoon, I shouldn't make that joke because it's like I don't actually want that to ever happen. That'd be terrible. But I feel like I just like I feel like my brain just is complete mush by the time the afternoon comes, and I'm usually fresher in the morning. But I'd have like my student. The problem is with my students, they're I think where they're at hormonally, and I remember this. It's like plus it's like usually if you're an art student, you're up all night like making stuff. It tends to be like a flow time for a lot of people, and they'd be just like exhausted, and we'd have like a crit, So like I would have them meditate. We'd meditate together, but if I also told them if they didn't want to do it, they could just sit and like kind of self-regulate. But we'd
That's
do that.
cool.
And it was amazing because it made the critique like super tapped in. It'd be like the type of stuff that you get to towards the end. The critique like immediately in the beginning. And I felt it was because we kind of established this sort of like mycelium web, like within the um within like the classroom setting, and we're all like I mean the focus was like incredible, like it would just like get straight to it. But I found that like I mean it doesn't always it's not as effective maybe for some neurodiversities, like I guess like if somebody has like even though I don't know maybe that I just have noticed that it's harder if like somebody has like ADD or
Oh yeah,
ADHD.
they would,
times.
yeah, they wouldn't take you at like Vipassana if you had a big issue like that. Like, I'm not sure about ADD, that might be okay, but certain like things like schizophrenia and so forth, they're really cautious about that because it definitely like you have to be relatively stable in your mind
Yeah,
to do
it can
these
open up
practices.
a door that maybe needs to stay closed. So yeah, it's not.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's similar too with I think like I mean I feel like there's more uh openness to psychedelics as like for or like plant medicines for medicinal reasons or purposes, but and I mean Michael Pollan's written all those books that kind of like open things up, and he's real square, so I think that that's kind of helpful, I guess, in terms of
I
opening
think I
people.
think part of
But
it, yeah, no, totally. I think it's great. He's really opened things up a lot, and I have a lot of gratitude for for his work. I suspect that he's less square than he sort of tries to seem, so that other people can access it, which is great because
yeah, well, it's
people
better
would,
than like Terrence McKenna because like if like
yeah,
he might be
yeah,
like too much of like you don't
oh
want to
yeah,
meet kids with him, but like Michael
yeah.
Pollan
Whoa,
could probably.
whoa. Terrence McKenna. Have you ever heard his like DMT trip reports?
I love like I
It's
mean I
amazing.
used to listen to all of his. There's this guy I think his name's like Lorenzo. And he had like a big archive of his talks on this his podcast called like the Psychedelic Salon. Um, and I've listened to like every single one
Oh, cool.
of his talks. I got really into him because when I was living after undergrad, I lived out in Texas and I was farming, and I was just curious. I got curious about mushrooms then,
You can
and
find him in Texas pretty easily, right?
I mean, yeah, I just like I mean, I just was looking at mushrooms and just wondering if they were edible, and then like I stumbled upon Terrence McKenna's like work, and I never had heard of him before, and I thought that was great. I wish I had. I was listening to him a lot, like in grad school, but I didn't know. Like, I wish I had maybe like I realize now. Now it's funny because I can look at people's work, like a lot of painters. I can be like, can tell if they've like I guess like taken in some of his like thoughts or ideas. It's just by looking at it. I wish at the time I felt like it was like I guess with the cultural context I was coming out of, I thought it was maybe too taboo, and I also felt kind of insecure because it seemed like everybody was into post-structuralist like theory, and I was trying to understand like what that was like in relationship to what I was doing. But I think I would have had better studio visits if I just been like I'm into Terrence McKenna. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what undergrad did you go to?
I went to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, which
Wow.
is like the
So,
polar opposite of RISD, but I
you
feel like
felt
kind of the same thing in different clothes,
you felt
though.
the urge to return to your ancestral homeland of
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah. And I mean, a lot of people in my family went there. My older sister is going there, but I kind of felt like, it was funny. I was joking about this. I saw Carl D'Alvia yesterday because do you know him? He's a
I know
sculptor.
of him. I like his work. Yeah, I like his work.
He just had this like first like public commission, and it was just great. Like it's in the city. We went up to that, and I was hanging out with him, and he went to RISD, and he was talking about how like the European honors program changed his life. And it's funny. At RISD, I had like I made good grades and everything, and I got invited into that, and I was like telling him like I just can't believe it that I like instead of going to Europe and studying, I was like, nope, I'm going to go to school in Texas. And I was like, yeah, instead of having like pleasure and like beauty, I was like, I'm gonna just have more suffering and go like straight into the wound.
Oh
And
man,
I don't know, I feel like it's like I think that I don't know, but everyone they kind of need I think like I don't know, sometimes I don't even know if I necessarily even believe in free will. We were talking about that some, like I kind of feel like it's like it had to happen like exactly that way. Um
my brother was telling me about a quote. I think it was like Proust or somebody who said, "You have free will up until the point where you do something and then you don't." I'd be like, I gotta read Proust. He kind of like he's always talking about Proust. Like people that are into like I don't have you known anybody who's like big into Proust? It's like
Yeah,
it
Rose
keeps
Wiley is into Proust, and she told me I should read. We were in a show a while back, and it was cool. I got to go out to her studio, in her home, which is like it was like Beatrix Potter land, and she told me that I should read Proust, and I haven't yet. But it's tricky for me because like um I read a lot of nonfiction. If I read fiction, it gets tricky because I sometimes I don't have theory of mind, so um it can be complicated for me to follow what's going on. Or I mean, it's a interesting. It can be some things like really stand out, but I'll miss like big chunks of things that I think like most people who are neurotypical maybe might get that I might miss, but just a different lens of looking at it.
So what sort of books do you read? What kind of what do you gravitate towards?
Um, I mean, right now, I guess I'll read like I just read. Do you ever read any Reginald Ray?
No.
So he's like written a lot about Tibetan Buddhism. I just read his Tantra book. I do a lot of audiobooks too because I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm walking. Um, I'm reading Michael J's book on psychonauts. I read his book on mescaline a while back. Uh, I'm also, I guess I got like the Iliade encyclopedia. I'm going to start working my way through. Uh, I guess, and I think it's interesting too. When you start in, like when I started looking at stuff on Buddhism, I guess somebody told me to read like a Pema Chodron book, but then I
She's
kind of
great.
I bypassed her. I like when you find some things you're like, who are these people's teachers, and you find them, and then I really like Changyang Trungpa Rinpoche, like her teacher. I think he's
Oh, Chogyam Trungpa. Oh, he's a
yeah,
wow, he was the bad boy of Buddhism, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. He's like really like associated with like crazy wisdom.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned him because he's sort of I was thinking of him when you sent me those poems by the sixth Dalai Lama. I wonder if maybe we could read a couple of those.
Yeah, let's do it. There's like I think that look him up again. I can't remember. I don't have anything memorized, but I came up across him because like the fifth and the sixth Dalai Lama they oversang like or oversaw like the Lokang Temple, and I was like reading about it in this book, and they kept on like putting his poems in there, and I was like, God, these are spicy. Like I couldn't, and I thought that
Yeah.
was great, and it almost made me. I thought it was interesting because it's a Tantra temple, and I was like, well, they didn't like the sixth one as much because he would like go to the bars and like hook up with ladies and stuff. But I was like, well, maybe he's like in a way you like think of him as like a tantra master, sort of, or in that sense, because it's like using like desire as like an inner heat, which I think comes across with the one that's like the fragrance of her hair draws me from the sacred skulls. Though I chant the six syllable mantra, my mind recites her name. So it's like using the beloved as like a yidam, which I think is a really I think it's incredible. Like, I mean, maybe some people might think that that's blasphemy, but I think it's great. It's like whatever vehicle you use to get you there. I mean,
I
maybe
think
it's a distraction, but I don't know. I don't. Doesn't seem like it if you're writing poems.
it seems like just realistic. It seems like he's just honest with himself. You know what I mean? You know, he's like a worldly guy, you know, and like that doesn't mean that he's like less advanced or whatever. I mean, and he's it seems like he's just at maybe comfortable with his attachments. You know, he's not trying to hide them or repress them.
Yeah, yeah. Piece with them, integrate them. I mean, I guess that's like because I guess like if yeah, the repression would be the problem, right? I mean, that would
Depression,
probably be
exactly,
attachment.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's true. But then you also it's there's a sweet spot I think where you're not repressing or expressing. You know, I like that thought. It's like, okay, so you're just with it, right? A lot of the monks, I think the do you know many any monks or of any monks in the Thai forest tradition like Ajahn Chah? Um,
Yeah, I've heard like I listened to the podcast that we had. I think yeah. So I just was like I'm curious what were you gonna say about it,
Oh no, I was
or
just gonna say,
just
yeah, one of what Ajahn Chah was Jack Kornfield's teacher, so I feel like Jack Kornfield uses a lot of, or some of Ajahn Chah's ideas, or not even his ideas, but the ideas from like from Theravadan Buddhism, specifically the Thai forest tradition. But they would say, you know, that you don't need to repress these desires, but you also don't want to express them. You know, it's really just about just being with what is. Uh,
yeah. Do you think if like if you believe in it's like I go down this weird road. Do you think if you believe in reincarnation that in a past life you're a monk?
I think maybe, yeah, yeah, like you have some unfinished business, perhaps. I think about that often. It's funny you mention that. I always like, even like us having this conversation. I'm sure. I mean, like if you think about just the possibilities, the infinite sort of potential of all life. I mean, the Buddha said, for example, that that for the amount of for how many lives you've lived in the past, the amount of time is the same as the amount of time it would take for a bird holding a silk scarf to wear down a mountain.
That's cool.
This is
Yeah.
something he said something like that. This is according to Ram Dass, which I think he's a pretty reliable source, I suppose. But he, I I feel like there's just an infinite possibility. So like, and a lot of Buddhist contemplatives will say that everybody that you encounter in your life has been every possible permutation, every kind of relationship, and he's been your enemy, your friend, your mother, your lover, your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister. So it's kind of weird to think about that, right?
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I think it's like that was something I felt like in when I was in Nepal. I feel like people they like interact with you like with that in mind.
We
Like
should, we should.
very different. It was like a totally different channel than I'd ever experienced. And I was like, even like, and especially when I was like in Bhutan, like that place felt like, I mean, there's some stuff that felt, I mean, there's definitely some things that feel like there's some underbelly stuff, but like for the most part, there's something about the land felt like incredibly like blessed, and it, um, I've never felt a place that has felt like that, like on this planet, and I don't know. I hope it can maintain its culture. I mean, they didn't have TV till like the '90s, and I think there's something like really beautiful. Maybe it's repressive. I mean, too, but like I don't know. I mean, like I'm kind of. I thought there is like an energy there that felt very peaceful, and I have not felt that anywhere. And I don't know. I thought it was just like I guess I don't know. I hope that it can keep maintain its culture. I guess in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. It's amazing you get to experience that. Did you feel like it was more easy to connect with people?
Yeah, I felt like especially in the I remember at one point there's this guy I was talking like I just met him. I was going to look for some water and he was studying to be a monk and he was walking with me and I my guard was up a little bit because like also like I was like what is going on like with this person and I felt bad then afterwards because I realized he just wanted to like connect and talk and he was like really sweet and like open.
Well, we're suspicious, right? If somebody's too nice
Yeah, I was
in this
suspicious
culture.
about it.
Yeah.
And it was like I felt and I was like, I'm the problem, not this person. Like
Yeah.
like that. And like
Yeah.
and I like and it was really cool. It was just like nice. It felt really great just like connecting really directly with him. We're just like talking about like, his studies and um he just walked with me as I went to go get water and then I walked back and like I don't know, it was just like a nice I feel like it was a nice interaction. A lot of interactions were like that. Like people just want to come and like sit with like throughout the whole time I was there, they just would like sit down and like talk to me. And
That's really cool.
yeah, I thought it was really great and it didn't feel I mean, it's like the opposite. In New York, everyone kind of leaves you alone, which is fine too. Like, that's also like no problem. But people just felt like really like present and kind of open, and there's like a sweetness too that I thought was kind of interesting, and felt like unusual. I guess the only belief I really have is I think I love structural to reality, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that's
don't.
good.
Yeah, and that's actually like kind of controversial because I think a lot of people would be like if they have like a lot of suffering or they're like grew up in terrible war zone or like something like that might seem like saying something like that might seem cold or like cruel, but I don't know, it's kind of like I think um I almost feel like you don't even I almost feel like it's like decided before you even show up. like maybe what you're going to be
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. I
doing.
think, yeah. Yeah. I think you made the choice before taking birth, Um,
You
s-
agree to certain conditions,
yeah, you do.
like your
Yeah.
soul needs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So whatever it is you need to learn from, right? So if you left something
yeah.
unfinished before and you have to learn, you got to come back and learn it. That I think that's the thing, is you finish with it, right? That's the whole idea. At least that's the idea in many forms of Buddhism, is that you want to be finished here with all your stuff. So you've dealt with everything, all your past karma, all these things you keep coming back. You've extinguished it through your practice, through meditation, just through awareness, through mindfulness, through the way that you live. And I mean, that's a pretty like, I don't know if that should be necessarily a goal. I think if we could just get a little lighter, like get rid of some of that stuff and and just move about in the world in a way that's good for everybody, or at least you're trying to be more conscientious in general. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the show you curated last summer.
Oh yeah, you've done mushroom shows too, though. Like Christmas in July, it's a mushroom show.
I didn't realize that. I wish I would have known you and known about the show because it looks
Same.
awesome.
That's cool. I didn't realize, and like I think I'd heard. I want to know about your show too, but yeah, the Christmas in July, um, it basically proposes that the red and white toadstool, Amanita muscaria, is the original archetype of Santa, and it is the sacrament that's used in Siberian shamanism, the Tungus and Laplander tradition as well, the Sami people, and it like there's this like idea that, um, and it's this is loose. Sometimes it's just kind of it's not super scholarly, but in that sense, but like that the Siberian shamans, they look like really similar to Santa. They're kind of these like women that wear these red and white outfits. They don these gray beards, and they gather this mushroom and share it. Like usually when there's like snow, so they have to go through the chimney of like a snow covered yurt to deliver it. And it's like rather than necessarily bestowing gifts, there's like kind of more like spiritual gifts that I guess are given ceremonially. Uh, and I wanted to do this show. I was thinking about, now it's kind of cool. I feel like maybe it's tipped something off because it does seem like it's becoming more popular for people doing a lot of like massive shows again. Like I feel like that was like popular maybe like 10 years ago. Maybe it's just a response to the market and people are just trying to like jam in as many options as possible. Like,
Yeah.
like I think
Yeah.
I wanted to make this. It was great. Like my program, I work with Andrew Rafis in Chicago, and it was nuts. Like both my programs had cars go through their windows,
What,
and
just accidentally? Like,
yeah, and
whoa.
Andrew was really freaked out about that because that's like nuts that's happened. And when I told him that had happened with Eric in Paris, he was like, I think he got really superstitious because I kind of been going through or I went through this sort of like trial by fire thing, and I think he thought he was maybe catching a little bit of that, but he had uh I guess like Nada had offered him like the space. You know, he's based in Chicago, to curate a show, and he just kind of he volunteered me because I had asked him at one point. I was like, I want to curate something for you. I've like asked for to curate a few shows, and uh, they've kind of fallen through. But I like curating a lot. I think it's really fun, and he was like, yeah, like Wells will curate Christmas in July, and they're like, okay. And then I felt kind of, it was kind of nuts. He's the biggest show he's ever done, and it was like in a city that isn't where he's like established, but he trusted me for it, and I'm glad. He's like I'm so thankful for him, working with him since 2017, and I'm gonna have like my third project with him in the fall.
Oh,
Um,
cool. When's it going up?
I think it's like October, November time.
I might go back for Thanksgiving to Northwest Indiana where I grew up, and Chicago's like an hour away. So if it's up while I'm there, I'll pop
Oh,
in. I want to
amazing.
see.
That'd
Yeah,
be
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I love to
yeah.
hear what you think about it. but yeah, he was great. So he asked me to do that, and I wanted the formation of the show to kind of feel like it was like a mycelium network, and I was thinking about joy a lot and wanting to kind of create this sort of like pulse that like
It
and
comes through.
yeah,
Even in the images. I'm sure in the show it's much more pronounced, that effect, that energetic effect, but I could feel it. Like I could feel the playfulness, the energy, it's like it's some things you can't really like quantify too, like the connectivity of it, the um just the energy in general. I feel like it looks like it was a really fun. I can see that you were having a good time doing it.
thanks. Yeah, it was cool, and I wanted to yeah, like I thought it was great because they like allowed me to bring together a lot of different kinds of artists too. Some artists it was like their first show, and I like that. I like when I get to curate something like that to um kind of take like a non-hierarchical like approach. Like someone might had like a student um Madison Lewis, and I think that was like maybe her first show in New York, and her painting was just as big as Catherine Bradford's, and they were hanging like right across from each other. And it was fun because I got to like not everybody makes like a Santa painting, but some people did for this, and then it opened it up if it was like red or green, or like anyone who's like a head, or if I could figure out a way to um I mean, I picked every single piece in that show. I was like really specific about it. Did tons of studio visits, designed the catalog for it, and but yeah, I wanted a lot. So like, I wanted to kind of get a bunch of like just mystics and weirdos and freaks like all combined like together in this space.
Oh, excellent,
Like
excellent.
fun.
Excellent. That's what it's about. Like being here in the city is such a what a it's a there's so many amenities and we think about, oh yeah, it's great. There's all this stuff. You can go to the museums, but rarely are we really conscious that it's really the people. You know, it's the art. It's not necessarily the art. Like I'm fond of quoting this Agnes Martin, where she says that it's not the painting itself isn't the artwork, it's the experience that happens when you look at the painting. You
She's
know,
cool. Do you think about her a lot?
often, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how she got her plans for her paintings like the size of a postage stamp. She's like kind of like a high priestess of like Zen Buddhism or something. Like just kind of keeps on emptying out. And I've been really connected to her too, because like my undergrad had a campus in Taos where she lived in New Mexico. And that place always felt like really like kind of like a spiritual home for me, really grounding. And I think it has to do with like the landscape there because there's something about where you don't feel like there's much of like a separation from like the land and the sky. That maybe like things in like the in New York or something, it might be even be like just the density of people, but even like buildings that maybe like block that kind of like connection. But the I'd always have these like reoccurring dreams that during like times of distress in my life that I'd get in my car and just like drive to New Mexico. And that's kind of what she did. So that was kind of like funny. There's a
Yeah.
lot of parallels.
Yeah.
I like too that she like doesn't think, and I kind of agree with her on this. Like, I don't know. I like how she doesn't think that like she's kind of radical. She doesn't think that we even should even really get to take credit for the
Yeah.
work. And I think that's kind of cool too.
It's so cool. It's really not you. It's everything around you. It's like, did you control your socioeconomic background? Did you control your, I mean, on one level, no. I mean, maybe you did like before you, as we talked about before you sort of made the choice to come into this world, et cetera, et cetera. But that's beyond your conscious understanding. And I think that's something you don't even need to really, it's a fun exercise, but you don't really need to consider it. But the truth is that you didn't really control your like your background, that you had these sort of opportunities, privileges, and you had the luck to be in a place where you could make art in the first place, and all the people around you and everybody that contributes into it, and from even the people that like bring the food into the city that allow you to have the energy to make paintings and make art and so forth. But
Yeah.
she really had a I liked what you said, what you say about her sort of emptying out and then starting again. I think that's, you know, that's really like she was able to do that, to get to the place where she took the personality out of it, and then coming from a place of emptiness, you can really get at something really true, I think.
Do you think consciousness is located in the body?
No,
Yeah, me
absolutely not. No,
too.
no way. No
No
way.
way.
No way. Uh-uh. Ajahn Sumedho famously said it's like a fish asking where water is.
Yeah, it's
It's like
cool.
where's consciousness? Where's consciousness? Where it's everywhere, right?
It's weird. People think it's like, I think it's like, I'm blown away that people think it's contained. Like, I'm like, wow. I don't know. It's like
No.
putting a cap on something. Do you,
Yeah, yeah.
do you think like all times already happened? Yeah,
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 yeah. And I think it's not necessarily already happened. I get a sense that it's all happening all at once. Like
yeah,
there's not really a linear perception of time as we like linear time is not really real, you know, and like time itself is just a construct as well. It's just the one. It's kind of scary to think about because you still have to like get up and put on your pants, you know, and like
yeah, yeah. It's
and
true.
go to the doc, you know, go to the appointment or go to work at 9 a.m., whatever it is, you got to like be on, I guess, the same time as everybody else. But you can have that time and understand that it is relative, you know, that
Yeah,
it's real, but it's real. Again, like just like reality, the nature of reality, time is relatively real. You know, you still have to sort of function within a context.
have
But
you? Oh, I was gonna
oh
ask you. Oh, have you ever had like precognitive experience?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think yeah. I had one wild experience at a ceremony some years ago with plant medicines, and they just loaded us up, man. This is the craziest thing. I like looking back, I was like, that is completely irresponsible. This the wild shaman. I don't know. But
Where did you do that?
oh, this is someplace in like Pennsylvania, some rural Pennsylvania. This is years ago, like during COVID. It was the weirdest thing during COVID. He hasn't come back. This guy. If he did, I would go in a second for sure because it was amazing. But I know it sounds like contradictory for me to say that it was irresponsible and crazy, but also it was like blowing on a moth's wings. Like it's like the dust on a moth's. I had this vision in my mind. Like that's how tenuous and fragile and beautiful the whole experience of life is. It's like
Yeah,
and that's how fleeting it is too. It's just like that. It's just that's all it is. Just in fact, this morning I was walking Greenwood Cemetery and I saw an egret there, a rare egret, and I was just watching it for a minute, and he started shaking, like shaking off his feathers. And there was this like fine mist of a dew, of this sort of fine mist that came off the feathers. And it was just the most beautiful. And the sunlight was hitting it just in just this moment. And I'm like, this is like an experience that is never, you're never going to see that again in just that way, you know.
yeah,
But I think every moment is like that, isn't it? If you really think about it.
yeah, yeah. Yes, and there's a lot of things that distract, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
that can potentially. But it's like if you can train your mind, you
And
get
just see
to
things, just
see
observe
things.
things
Yeah,
as they are.
it's like kind of great.
It's hard. It's so hard because we're these just like weird fleshy tubes, and we have all these desires, and there's you know like our microbiome wants this, and you want to you know, and you're in these environments which are pretty unhealthy, you know, like all the toxins, and you're eating plastic and whatever it is. But it's the whole thing. The whole experience of it is beautiful, you know, like it's all of a piece, right?
Yeah, or sometimes desires they might not even be yours. They might have been implanted, you
Yeah.
know, like so there's that as
Yeah.
well. Did you like I'm curious too about like what's can you talk about your mushroom show? I want to hear more about it.
Oh, yeah. So I did two actually. One was upstate with Letha Wilson back in 2018. First, we did a cactus show, and then we did a mushroom show in 20. We did a cactus show upstate in her place in 2017. Then a mushroom show in 2018. Then another mushroom show at Sardine Gallery in 2019.
Cool.
But it was great because we realized that really like we had all these friends. We had like back then I was like I think a lot more social than I am now. So I had a lot of people who I like had basically had to put in the show and wanted to. But you know how it is. Like it's like they're like, "Oh man, I want to be in that show." What are you gonna say? No? Like, of course you can be in the show. Like, yeah. So like I realized that a mushroom, like it could be anything. It could be anything could be mushroom related. You know, it's like a layer of consciousness. It could be a literal mushroom. It could be a lot of people did just regular edible mushrooms, some a morel sculpture, or there was a literal thing, or it was like psychological. It was like a trippy sort of Abax painting. Sure, that could be a mushroom show if you think about it. It's beautiful that it's quite open. I don't know if it sounds like your experience, it sounds like yours was a little more, um, uh, I don't want to say thoughtful, but maybe like more directed, perhaps.
They both sound great. Maybe we should get together and
Let's
try to
do it.
curate a mushroom show, a third one.
We should
Like
do it.
it would be fun. Like
Let's do it.
that. Yeah.
Let's
I
absolutely.
I definitely also want to do like I mean, I hope to do Christmas in July in general, like again. Like I feel like it's something I want to do
That's
like every
awesome. That's awesome.
like
And
3 or 4 years, but even just a mushroom show I think would be
let's
fun
do it.
in
Let's
general.
make it happen. Let's make it
Yeah.
happen. I'm gonna start hunting around. I'll start poking around. But I want to ask you before we about it says a jolly holiday special curated by Santa enthusiast. Well, Chandler, are you indeed a Santa enthusiast?
Yeah, it's like it's my B-side, but it's also like uh thinking about it as like a mushroom enthusiast too. I just joined the New York Mycological Society. Have you joined them? Do you know them?
No.
John Cage started it. I kind of don't want to talk about it because like I'm scared of all these artists. Now I'm gonna probably try to join, but I just want to hang out with like I wanted to meet people that aren't artists that are like freaks, and I feel like mushrooms are like maybe people that are into them would be like a fun group of people
Oh yeah,
to hang out
yeah.
with. And they have different. It's only like $25 to join, and yeah, John Cage like he started the New York Mycological Society. He was a I guess like an amateur.
Yeah, he wrote that book. Have you seen that book? That
I have it,
yeah,
yeah.
you have it? Oh,
Well,
cool.
yeah, it's cool. My partner got
Yeah,
it for me.
yeah.
And it's funny. I've run into them twice. I live next to you in Cortland Park, and I walk in there every single day. You should come up at some point because they have really cool
Yeah.
birds since you like birds.
Yeah, I just encountered some birders this morning. They hit me to the egret. They were like, "Hey, check out that egret over there." It's
Yeah,
like I'd see like both birding and mushroom people are definitely like
in the mix.
kindred spirits for sure.
I thought it was funny. The first time I saw them, I'd heard about it, and I was like, it was like a weird synchronicity where we had been upstate, and there was like tons of mushrooms. I was looking at them with my nieces, and they can see a ton because they're like really close to the ground, so they're seeing things that were like the size of the tip of my pinky, and they were like incredible looking, like amazing. You're like, look, Uncle Wells, look at this one, and it's like super tiny, and I mean, we miss a lot being far away, from the ground. This is a completely different um perspective, but I had it. This is like probably TMI, but I hadn't showered in like a few days, and I was like wearing this mushroom shirt for like 3 days. So I feel like it was kind of like I was like becoming part mushroom. I went out for like a walk in the park, and then I stumbled upon them. So I felt like I summoned them by like becoming
Yeah,
a mushroom like myself. And
they have a unique consciousness.
yeah, yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I mean, I feel like the mycelium web is like a great um kind of model for thinking about
Mhm.
consciousness to a certain because
Mm.
it's like spread out for like thousands of miles and
Yeah, decentralized.
yeah and like I believe people are connected too like through that so it's like
Consciousness is so permeable.
yeah
It's like go into
exactly
a room with somebody who's in a bad mood and you feel it. It's like it's not rocket science, right?
yeah yeah
It's
and I mean I think it's like why like a lot of faiths I mean they teach sort of like a non-dualist like lens like when you do harm to somebody else you're actually doing harm to yourself like I kind of buy into that like idea I like that idea of um I think a lot of stuff is like I guess anyone who's done therapy too, you realize that projection, like what that how that actually starts, like uh coming a mirror to a certain extent. So I don't know, I find that stuff really kind of interesting and helpful. But I don't remember what we were asking. You're asking about the Santa stuff. I just trailed off thinking about mushrooms and or the mycological
oh, this is a
society.
Santa enthusiast. Yeah, no, that's good. I think
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your work because I feel like I've been seeing it. I've been seeing it for a number of years, and you've been making these crocheted or knitted.
Yeah, they're crochet.
What's the process?
It's crochet. It's uh, I make drawings first, like
Hmm.
on make a lot of drawings using like black magic marker and like computer paper, like pretty just direct, and then whenever I have been given an opportunity to do a show, I usually ask for a floor plan and I make work site specifically for the space. And it's a lot of it's trying to think about like what what the show should look like, or I'm like trying to see it. So it's kind of using like sort of like a, I guess it was like a, I mean, I wouldn't even say it was necessarily like Jungian, but like a creative like visualization or trying to project. I think an image is first, like, you know, Temple Grandin, she wrote that book, Visual Thinking, that kind of goes like, I don't know if you read it, but
No.
um, like autistic people, they tend to think in images first, or they have like quote unquote visions, like that's like primary for them. So a lot of it's trying to like see what it looks like and then try to translate that in the material sort of devotionally and repetitively, like making all the components that then fit into the space. And I mean, I was trained in
Hmm.
painting. That's like my background, and that's what I've always like taught, and that's what I know. And I kind of expand, or I think about what I'm doing is like, um, I mean, it is technically textile, but I do think of it as like expanded field painting, and like I relate it to kind of similar to like maybe like, I mean, I'm not as good as Giotto, but like I think about the idea of like walking sort of like inside of like a painting, like thinking about like an arena chapel to a certain extent, or something that's like completely immersive where you're a part of it and not really like separate from it. And having that being reflected in like the form of like a show. And I think of like the whole, I guess like art piece as like the installation or like the show, and then like people kind of like pieces of it, because it would be like impossible to ever sort of like recreate, because you'd have to, I guess the only way, so in a way I kind of feel like nobody actually ever gets to own my work if they do live with it, um which I like, which like feels kind of great, unless like they gave me, unless they built like something for me to do
That would
something.
be site specific. They have built a room and they're like, can we maybe make a piece for this room? It'd have to be a commission
Yeah, and it have to
to
be
be
permanent. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
so
Yeah.
it hasn't happened yet. That would be cool if it did at the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I was struck by the playfulness of the figures in your work. Like I get a sense that they're really like entities of a kind.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think a lot about like guardians, and I mean, there's been a lot of different, I guess, like the, I'm interested in how guardians also, they're usually around thresholds or portals between different realms, like cross culturally. Like there's these like terracotta figures called sonrientes, and I saw this at, have you ever been to Mexico City?
No.
That's one of my favorite cities, and they have the National Museum of Anthropology is one of my favorite museums in the world. And you walk in, there's this giant fountain, and it looks like a huge mushroom, which is
Cool.
cool. And
That's cool.
I think that the, I mean, I think is interesting because like a lot of the cultures that are being um, displayed, or you know, like represented there, they had relationships with like mushrooms and lysergic acid and peyote, and you can kind of see those forms like echoing. I'm really interested in how like plants and have impacted visual art and culture, and I feel like that museum kind of points to that. But there's like terracotta figures. I remember seeing them when I was little in like a National Geographic, and they've really stayed with me. I really like them a lot, and I didn't realize this though, but then I thought it was interesting because they kind of felt like they informed the loosely like the trolls that I made, that are kind of like the figures where it's like a head with like a butt and like little legs. And those are used in burials, which I think is interesting. They're like these like joyful little figures that I think it's interesting to have something like that for like crossing over. Like I guess death is an ultimate threshold sort of,
Yeah.
or as one, not ultimate, but a door into something else. So having something friendly, uh, I guess, to counteract fear. There's this great fear quote I want to read. I could read that, like Kathy Bates. She went to SMU, and she was on the Colbert Show. And whenever she whenever she has to learn new quote or new lines for a film, she reads this quote from Dune, And I think I've been thinking about this quote a lot, especially the past 2 years, because now it's cool. I don't feel like I have fear anymore, which is like amazing. Like, and there's a lightness if you don't have fear and you're going through life. It's like those are really great. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, I think meditations help, and I think like also maybe I don't know, you guys were talking, you and Letha were talking about this with like near death experience, and um, she said the same thing. She said she didn't feel like she had fear after she had like that uh, car wreck or something, and I thought that was cool. I'm not that the wreck was cool, but that she like didn't have
Yeah.
fear as a result, and that kind of
Yeah.
resonated with me with some of the things I've been moving through in the past few years. And but this is the quote, and it's from Dune. Uh, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
I love
I
that.
love that.
It's amazing. It's such a great book. It's one of my favorites. It truly it's brilliant because there really is like there's like a universal quality to that in terms of like on like a mystical level. A lot of Buddhist practices focus on really observing sensations, but that includes sensations like fear, right? And so you look at it and you see there's nothing to it. There's nothing behind it, right?
Yeah, it's like a great fire. I don't know, like you just like I don't know, I feel like it's like a great refining thing to figure out how to like sit in that and not have it consume you.
The Vipassana is very useful for that because so much comes up. I remember doing one during COVID, and there was so much fear in the environment. Do you remember that summer of 2020? How
Yeah.
just you couldn't help but absorb it from the culture you were in. And so I went to this Vipassana, this 10-day retreat, and I could feel it palpably, almost as if it had a there was like a sensation of just fear like running through my body. But there's nowhere to go. You're sitting there and you have to sit there and there's just nowhere to go. And you realize, okay, well, I guess I'll just be anxious. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's fine. That's okay. You know, like you just kind of confront it. And I think that's really useful in our lives. We're always trying to run away. We're always doing these things that end up getting us into more trouble because of running away from this fear or anxiety or depression or things like that. And it just becomes compounded. You know, I think that's the case with addiction. Addiction is just running away.
Yeah. Addiction's nuts. Yeah, it's like or it's like I mean, I don't know. I think of it as like it's like you're a firefighter. Like I mean if somebody's in the thralls of addiction. I mean I've had addiction stuff at different points,
Same, yeah.
and I think like when I've been I mean I almost feel like I was like it was just
Were you a smoker? Drinker?
um a little bit both, I guess. Like I what's the nice thing about like I can't do weed. And I found that out because I didn't realize this, but I have cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, and it happens from habitual use, long-term use, and it ends up once you're I guess you get your body gets to a certain level of THC, something happens with the receptor cells in your brain, and it confuses it with your gut, and you end up violently vomiting for like 10 days straight. It can cause your kidneys to shut down. It's part of
Wow.
the reason why I left Rizzy, because it happened there. It usually should happen like after a year of use, but like I just had started smoking like and at that point, and it happened to me after 6 months of use. So
Wow.
my body's super sensitive to it, and I didn't know that I had that episode at the time. It comes with like psychotic fever dreams. It was the sickest I had ever been, and then I kind of went. It's funny. It's like all this like I'm not like I don't know. Are you into astrology at all, or do you do that, or tarot
I
cards or
I
anything like
know
that?
very little of it. I'm interested in it, but I don't know much.
Yeah, I'm interested in it too. I don't know. I feel like I look like someone that knows a lot, and people expect that, but then I really don't know. But my friend's an astrologer, and she did tomorrow time. She's an awesome artist too, and she did a reading for me. And it's funny around the time that my health started falling apart, I was in like my North Nodal return and like Saturn kind of return, and that uh, basically and within my timeline means like everything that was like traumatic that happened like in like 19 and 20 and stuff like that, like is a repeat. But the nice thing, I guess within my chart, it said that like I was gonna, it's like you're going through sort of like boot camp, but I would have the tools to be able to like relive that trauma and like work through it. And I did. It was like definitely I feel like I this like kind of trial by fire period, and that had kind of kicked it. I guess like when I around that time I got there was like major corrections in my life, like um I had I guess I found out I was on the spectrum, which felt like a second coming out. That was like amazing. Like I had no idea, and even though a lot of people would tell me, they thought, they're like, I think that's
I just listened to this really great interview with this person, Ellen Langer. Do you know? She was a Harvard psychologist. I think she still is. She's in her maybe 70s, 80s now, but she's just really fascinating. She's done a lot of studies, a lot of tests on like how psychology really creates your reality, like how you think about things.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and it's true, right?
We're just having awareness. I feel like increased awareness because like a part of like for me like was trying to manage like sensory sensitivity and numbing that down. So I was like kind of drinking really heavily and also doing like I think around the I guess during the pandemic I started doing gummies to help me sleep, and then that's like tipped off the CHS. But
Oh boy.
yeah, it was not good. But I thought it was great. It actually ended up preparing my body. It's odd how like everything sort of like lined up around that time because I had within like a 6 month period, it had like five kind of consecutive like cancer scares, like where I kept on getting biopsied for cancer. Like my body kept on producing these cells that looked like cancer, but when they were biopsied, they'd test negative. And then I was getting I figured out I was on the spectrum, and then I also got gender affirming care for like top surgery, and that was kind of great. But I almost felt like it was like my body was like okay, and I started meditating too, and
Wow.
I stopped
That's
drinking around that time, so it was
yeah.
like really nuts, and I felt like it was like, and I can see too why like not. I mean, I still drink, but just like really infrequent. I don't really like. I don't not to what I was doing previously, which was excessive. I think a lot of it's probably because I like sugar. Honestly, like I, I think it's like loving sugar.
It's it's your gut biome just
Yeah, yeah,
they may call them the shots, right?
yeah. I think so. But it was kind of the CHS was amazing because it sort of actually like cleaned up my gut bio because like
Hmm.
you vomit like crazy, and
Oh.
it took out like craving for sugar. It got me down to like my target weight for like top surgery. And
What is top surgery?
oh,
What?
for like I had a like F to M like double mastectomy, gender affirming care. So I'm trans, and I had wanted to have top surgery for a while, but I'd put on a bunch of weight like after grad school, and you can have it actually when you're heavy and stuff, but like I wanted to get my weight kind of back down. Um,
And when did you know, if you don't mind me asking, when did you know that you would transition?
yeah, I didn't know. I guess like I mean it's complicated, right? It's like I knew I was trans when I was like a kid, and then I grew up in a culture and in a family unit that's not very like accepting of that, and um I mean, it's funny. I've had a kind of interesting ride. So like I like because of my family structure, I was like a debutante like in two states, like in Texas and Virginia, which I think is really uh fascinating. And I spent like a long time, I guess like when I was younger, um, I guess trying to uh I guess like please my family, and but it was at the deficit of I guess like who I am. That wasn't really or who I'm supposed to be.
Was your
Um,
family
really,
conservative, religious?
yeah. I grew up in I guess like evangelical, like conservative Southern household, household, like everybody's like pretty much into Trump.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you
I
still,
like
you
I'm the
guys,
outlier.
you get along still though?
No, not really. It's been it's a complicated. It's weird because like now like my siblings they have kids and I really like their kids and I want to be like present for them and I connect really well with them, especially like one of them, Florence Finn. She's like incredible. Like she's like such a freak and like really tapped in. That was interesting. I like when I was in India, I tried to get my Vedic chart read, and I couldn't. I kept like, getting like I kept them falling through, but I figured out how to run it myself and then read it. And it's weird because like all of my family houses are completely empty. There's like three different sections for it on your chart, and I'm interested in like the archetype of like the orphan sort of for like an artist to a certain extent. And I mean I think that having like family is like amazing though. Like I think that's awesome. I just don't think that that's probably my part of my path.
Do you feel
um
like you have a very strong friend group that sort of takes the place of those kind of family connections?
yes, and in fact like even on that chart too, it's like other types of relationships are like lit up like
Yeah.
huge kinds of like planets in those houses. So but I still want to be like I think like I love my family and I still like and I don't think that they should necessarily change. I feel like they're living their truth, you know, as they are. And I don't really judge it. It's I think it's interesting. I mean, I feel like in a way it's no, I just feel like it was exactly kind of like this exact setup that I needed to grow as like a person. And you know, sometimes it's, I guess, in situations where there can be like a parental and child sort of like mismatch, it's great to love people from a distance sometimes. And I
Hmm.
feel lucky that I've been able to like set up my life like in a way that feels fulfilling. And, um, you know, I would, I guess like on some level would be nice to be close, but sometimes it's just not possible, you know,
Yeah.
you can't like, there's not of alignment. And maybe that'll shift over time. But I really like the little one's like awesome, and I talked to her a lot, and she made these like drawings, and I thought it was nuts because she draws everybody like really normal, and then when she draws me, she draws me like so weird. Before I had my hysterectomy, I went down to the Amazon and I worked with two Quechua healers and did some plant medicine stuff and it was great. It was like one on one. It wasn't like a tech bro kind of thing and like super authentic experience kind of. Have you read any Michael Harner at all?
No.
He's like I thought it was great. I read all of his books before. I think he was Eliade's student and he kind of diverted from him because he was like into like plant medicines and he's written a lot about I guess like some of them are like Way of the Shaman, Cave and Cosmos and um there's other ones that he's written there. I think that how he outlined like what was going to happen was like actually really helpful to read about that and I've been reading about it for like a really long time just for like prep. And I thought it was after I guess I did ayahuasca twice and had the first trip was interesting because it um I had contact with like all the I guess like kind of archetypal animals and when I was had like at one point like communing. I was like covered in snakes and like communing with this like snake. And I guess that's the considered a bad trip, but it didn't scare me. I kind of liked all the compression. It was like felt good. And it was showing me different things that I've like moved through that I'd be like shedding. And there's like things like my family's like how they're kind of lined up and related. Um, and then I thought the odd thing was because I was going down there in part because I was interested in trying to figure out a way to bring down students, like not to do that, but to like experience the jungle. And it showed me I was going to leave teaching. And I thought that was like really like amazing. But it showed me through like, and I felt more at peace about that because like um, showed me things that like that caused a lot of like suffering that I tried to like stay within when I was like younger and I was like I don't want to like stay in longer in a situation that doesn't feel like a healthy dynamic.
Yeah. So you,
And I was gonna say
I,
the lines though, like on here, after the second time that I did it, I had like a really positive one. The second time was like basically like like flying, like as an eagle, like most of the thing. I mean, I kind of wish that I had like more of the murky stuff because I find that more helpful. I'm like, give me more murk. Let's like integrate it. Let's shine a light on it. But anyway, it was like peaceful. And at the end, before I went to bed, and I was like, uh, I guess like looking in the mirror, and my body was like covered in all these like bands of like white light, and I thought it was really cool that Florence Fenton drew that. And I was asking her, I was like, what does drawing feel like? And she's like, the marker just does what it wants, and she kind of gets in
She's tapped
trance.
in.
Yeah, she does this like amazing trance state, and she drew this one, which I thought was kind of cool. There's like kind of like snaky arms, and then she gave me
Oh,
a hat there, and she's like, "That's a mushroom with like flames."
that there's sort of like an Indian element there.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting, and so she did this one too,
Oh wow.
and then she did this one.
Kids are we take they're extremely they have a much deeper understanding than we give them credit for.
Yeah, I think it's her head still open. It hasn't like
Yeah,
closed, and like I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. She's just so present and cool and funny and like hilarious. Like if like she could tell if like something feels like off a little bit energetically, she just will completely redirect. So I always tell her she's like an ancient sea turtle. Like
That's good.
super
That's
wise.
good. That's really good. That's really good. So,
Yeah.
so you stopped teaching in
Mm-hmm.
the fall, right?
Yep.
And now you're making art full time.
Yeah, it's been a weird transition, or I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I think it's something that I wanted to try doing. And I feel like it's something I could have maybe been doing, but I always really, I felt really um called to. I mean, I needed a job, so it's like how I started teaching, of course, like out of necessity. But I also really I thought it was like important because I didn't have any out um queer teachers when I was a student until graduate school, and I think that's nuts. And there really is a deficit of queer mentorship uh within academia. Um and I don't know, just like I felt like that was like something that felt important um to offer, I guess, for students, like just to have that kind of guidance. Yeah, so like I switched and now I'm doing art stuff full time, but it feels pretty cool. It's nice.
And how, so all these experiences, you're talking about all the experiences you had of going through this sort of difficult time. You had some health scares, um, you were going through some surgeries and other, did those things change your sort of trajectory in your work, or did they inform your work in some way?
Yeah, oh, I think it made it more primary. I mean, I feel like, you know, in doing teaching, like I have felt like my studio practice has like suffered some. And like uh it made me think like I don't know, it's like a lot of things that um I mean, I like doing a lot of things. Like I enjoyed I like writing for people. I still do some writing. I'm writing a essay for Colin Brandt. He's an awesome artist. You know his paintings?
No.
They're really cool. They're super tapped in. So I'm writing an essay for him right now for a show. It's going to be in Europa in June. But uh, I don't know. It was like it kind of everything got like whittled down. Like I was like doing a lot of curating with Soloway. I was involved with them. That kind of came to a close, and a lot of things.
Right. That's my roommate Ben Peterson had a show there, and
Oh
he said he
yeah,
met you.
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
cool person. Yeah,
Yeah, he's great.
awesome. Yeah, and I think like yeah, I think all that stuff's like really great. I always think about my I don't know, it's fine. My partner, she doesn't like it when I like refer to things as like service. I guess she thinks it's like a like it sounds annoying. I don't mean it, but I do think about service a lot, like in terms of like community and like help and aid. But
I think,
um
it's important though. I think it's important to think about what you can sort of how you can help people, how you can uplift people in the art community, the people these great artists. Like I think curating is a way to serve. I feel like
yeah,
everybody should have some experience curating for that reason.
I think like in teaching like that
And
too, or
teaching
giving
is
back or
extremely
having like
important.
reciprocal kind of like community like based like relationships. But I feel like it was funny. So going back to tomorrow when she read like my chart, she was laughing. She was saying that like she's like, "Oh, it looks like you're going to be stepping into more doing art." And I was like, "No." I was like, teaching's like one of the most important things in my life will probably be that. It's like not the case. And I thought it was funny. I was like, it's funny how like sometimes we see ourselves and how other people like they might perceive like what it is that you're
Well, I
doing. And
think it's funny you mentioned that, but I think also their perceptions, other people's perceptions, shape your reality as well.
yeah, totally,
Like
totally.
my other studio mate, I should say, my other studio mate, Alex Hudson. Well, I'll have him on the podcast at some point. He was the one that sort of planted this podcast in my mind. Like, you should have a podcast because for whatever reason he thought that it would be interesting, and now I've gotten so much out of it, and it's been such a great experience doing it. But I feel like a lot of stuff in your life, like we tend to think, oh, we tend to I guess we tend to think we have more agency than we actually have, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you do. And I mean, I think like part of it is it's almost like you're in a river and it's moving along and you can either like swim against the tide or you can figure out how to float, and you can use like all of it can be of use to like yoke you to it. And sometimes it might be turbulent. And if that's the case, maybe you can get out, hopefully not drown, and then grab a hold of something to help stay afloat. And other times it's peaceful. Um,
But it's always changing. It's always moving. The only constant is change, right? Like it's
yeah,
the saying reminds me of the saying that you never step into the same river twice, and I think that's true
yeah,
for every moment in life.
yeah. So I think it's like I don't know, just like trying to like trust that going forward and understanding that it might change at some point, and that's also okay too. And when that does, then it'll change again. But I feel lucky. It's like I'm so thankful for supporting my programs, and like Andrew and Eric have been really great. I'm gonna do a show with Eric and Richer in Paris in the spring at some point. So I'm working on that too. Like both shows, I'm developing it like really slowly, and I've just been resting a lot. A lot of it's just like I should have been resting more last year, like after my surgery, but instead I was doing like a lot of projects. And I think it was just to kind of keep it's helpful for me. I think sometimes like when you go through something kind of difficult, it can be easy if you're directing focus like outward, but now it's like I've been having to take like a little bit of a time out and rest and um I guess get in touch with stillness and try to figure out. I almost feel like I'm like kind of reparenting myself or something. I'll be like, okay, what does baby Wells need like today or something, and like thinking about recentering that in a way that I think is um, loving. And I think it helps you actually if you do that. Sometimes artists maybe they struggle with that being like selfish, but I don't think it's selfish at all. It's just it'll actually help you be able to um, even be more present, when you're with people. If you take care of your needs, and that it's like put your oxygen mask on first before it's just,
Absolutely, absolutely. That's really important. We forget that,
yeah,
but it's important to take care of yourself. It's important because that spreads outward, right? And it has to start with you, right?
yeah, yeah,
Well,
definitely.
Wells, I think that's a good place to wrap up. But if there's any, I wanted to ask if you have any sort of words of inspiration to artists or just anyone who wants to live a creative and fulfilling life.
Hmm. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Okay. Maybe like I don't know if it's like inspiration or maybe advice or maybe meditation could be great. It could help you go deeper. Not for everybody, but maybe that could help. I guess this is important. I think if you decide to pair off or even your poly or whatever, that's fine too. Just be careful about who you choose as your partner, your partners. I think that can be helpful.
Yeah, I
I
feel
can't
like
remember.
the people that's great advice. No, it's true because the people around you really shape your consciousness. It's like you want to hang out with people whose qualities you would like to absorb, right?
Yeah,
Because
being aligned.
you want to be aligned. You want people that have values that you that you share and that you sort of even aspire to, right?
Yeah, yeah. I always try to, yeah, I think that that's always really helpful.
Yeah, well, I greatly appreciate this conversation, and I think it's been inspiring for me, and I think a lot of other people as well, I hope.
Yeah, Dan, thanks so much. Come up here if you wanted to come walk or something. That would
I'd
be
love to. Where are you?
I'm up on, I guess it's near Van Cortlandt Park. I'm like second to last
Oh,
stop in the
in
one.
the Bronx.
Yeah, it'd be long
Indeed.
for you, but
Indeed. I have a car, so I could drive.
okay, cool.
I
That'd
could
be
drive
fun.
up there. Yeah, if you're ever down in Sunset Park too,
All right, that sounds great.
pop in. Pop
I
in.
will. That would be awesome. I wanted because I could come see some of your work. 'Cause I thought this was neat. I didn't realize this, but you designed the logo. You painted it.
That's
Really
right. Yeah. I did. I did. I painted the logo for the podcast and then I made it into I think it was like I'm a little embarrassed even. Not embarrassed, but it was like an NFT for a little while and then I don't know that whole thing. Are you in your studio right now?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, could I see something too?
It's like really messy. This is what the floor looks like.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of nuts. And these are some of the paintings I'm working
Oh,
on
cool.
that
Oh,
are up
wow.
there now.
Whoa. Those are all your paintings?
Yeah, not this big one. This big one's less color fronts, but yeah, I have like this one of like
What's that little one at the top?
I'll grab some of these. Yeah, here. I like these a lot. I like this elephant too. You ever work with egg tempera?
No, but I want to.
It's like they're like luminous jewels. I love
I
them.
want to. That's
Yeah,
egg tempera?
yeah, I like it because it traps light within the paint, and they feel like this is a lungta. It's a wind horse. It's kind of hard to see because it's like catching the like.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, that's awesome. Dude, that's
And
so
I
cool.
always think about light like being trapped in art in general, like kind of like Gnostic ideas. I love that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. Um, I mean, like Fra Angelico's Annunciations, or some of them are fresco, but the one that you probably think about, like the most famous one, and that's in the Prado, is egg tempera,
yeah,
and it just glows. I would love to see it in person. I don't know if
yeah.
you have, but so what's that on the floor? You've got stuff that you're crocheting.
I'm making a for Andrew. I'm making a garden. Yeah, I thought like wanted to like fill the space with flowers.
I gotta see this show.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with flowers too, with just like, do you have a garden yourself?
No, I wish, but I mean, I go to the park every single day, and I think of it as like a kind of metaphor for like inner life, I guess, and even like blooming, like growth, like and I wanted to. I've been thinking about like I guess take that hunt, like no mud, no lotus kind of thing, and just wanting to like the forms of the flowers. They look really similar to like some of the forms of my figures because they feel like they're like kind of like open, and also
Mm.
like this like surrender
Yeah.
state. There's something that feels really like sweet about them, or there's this like kind of energy that um that feels like I guess like that idea of like bodhicitta, like open heartedness or
Uh-huh.
in that way. Um, so I've been trying to think about like how to translate that like within these forms, and they're kind of weird. Like all the flowers are sort of weird, but it looks like nuts because they just like the floor just like piled up. I'm trying to keep the color. It's like when I do that, it's like feels like the all the yarn gets on the floor, and it feels like it's like the whole environment then becomes this like giant paint palette. You're like mixing up paint or like putting kind of blobs of color, and then trying to figure out how to pull them together, visualize how they're going to go into like the space, but keep the color and within like a certain range, but still have to be really expansive and open.
I'm kind of like imagining you as the giant brush, and then you're like in the palette.
Yeah, it just with all this is like one hook, and
Amazing.
it's fun
That's
and like
amazing.
just do like temper paintings. I mean, I've been taking a break from them. I was doing this really hard in January and February, and then stopped to kind of switch gears because it takes me like about a year to do like a show, and I'm under the gun for both of them. So I kind of like get going and making. If you like run out of time, if you don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, there's just a real like consideration, and there's a real beauty in your work that is a little challenging, which I really appreciate. you're making these experiences, I think, more than just an object. You're not really making a product. I mean, yes, you could see it as a product too, but you're also creating an experience.
experience. Yeah. And yeah, I hope so. And like I like kind of combining, I always call it like word sandwich or something, like things that you wouldn't necessarily go together. Like Eliade has like a book on like, is it or not? I don't know. Like yeah, like sacred and the profane. Like so having again, it's just like that coincidentia positorum, the tantric idea of like opposites kind of coming together.
I think they're two sides of the same coin,
Yeah,
right? The sacred
yeah,
and the profane, hope,
yeah.
fear, or love and fear. All these
Yep.
things are really the same thing. And I think a lot of Buddhist sort of ideas and philosophy reflect that on a deeper level. Like really, okay, so you have, you could either run towards something or away from something, but you're still running, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like what it's like I think when we learn to like recognize these things, it's like vehicles for transformation, that's like
Absolutely.
potent, kind of interesting. Have you ever had like mystical experience happen like from like your from meditation or like
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was there was a moment in Vipassana, my first Vipassana, where at the end, like on like the ninth or 10th day, I just dissolved into, you could feel I could feel every particle in my body just so aware, you're just so aware of the sensations in your body that you realize that there's nothing solid there,
yeah, you're not your
So
body.
no, you're not anything. You're not anything, and you just dissolve, and you're just like, what was that? But they really, one good thing about Vipassana is it seems like there's a focus on not these mystical experiences per se, but just the sensations. Just really like they're trying to really like be practical and focus on the sensations and doing the work. Because you can become attached. The danger is becoming attached to these sensations,
Right.
and then you're falling more into craving. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
Too
really hope I
bad.
hope you can do a 10 day, because this is the main thing. It's like the whole the point of the thing is to decouple yourself from craving and aversion, or at least become lighter in that way. So there's a danger though of becoming hunting for sensations. You don't want to do that, like, and it's the same thing as being averse. It's like, oh, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, I don't want that, or I want this. I want this transcendent mystical experience. So
Yeah.
it's like there was a I think about this as well. Do you know Longpo Dune? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he said that the dreams are real, but the content isn't.
Yeah, cool. I love that. That's awesome. That's great. Have you ever had experience like a experience with light, like inner light then?
I think everything is light. I really enjoy what you say about light being trapped in paintings, because you're getting at the sort of truer nature of reality, that it is just made of light. And I suppose you could sort of project, for lack of a better word, this idea onto the sort of notion that the whole thing is a simulation, a projection of a kind.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, it feels like that a lot. Do you
Yeah.
think you're Dan?
What's that?
Do you think you're Dan?
Um, yes and no.
Yeah, right. It's
Right?
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so weird. What a weird existence we're in. It's just so strange and wonderful, but it's wonderful.
yeah,
We're so lucky to be having this conversation and to be here and to be doing this thing and for however long it lasts, and the tendency is to want to grab, to want to attach to it. And but there's nowhere, they'd say this also in the Ajahn Chah. I think Ajahn Chah said it's like holding like a hot ball of metal. There's nowhere you can grab onto it that you won't get burned. So that's what the way attachment is.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
You can't touch it like that, but you can, or like Chogyam Trungpa, the bad boy we were discussing earlier, Pima's teacher, who said it's like attachment is like licking honey from a blade.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Whoa.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real. I don't even like the senses or there's something about like senses like being so instructional, at least for me, or like sensory aspects.
Yeah.
I think
That's the
that's
greatest
really
teacher, isn't
cool.
it? Wells, it's been great to have you, and I really appreciate your speaking and your work and all of your efforts.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you again.
thanks for creating this space, and I'm glad we could connect on here and have this conversation.
Same.